You're tuned in to Steve Megatron on Altered Geek.
Altered Geek. Get altered. Geek. Altered Geek. From Star Wars to Star Trek, comics to tech. Altered Geek. Get altered. Geek. Altered Geek. Pull up a chair 'cause you're an altered geek.
Hello and welcome to Altered Geek, the show where pop culture and living in the modern era collide and no topic is considered off limits. If it's something you're interested in, then you're a geek too. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and in this episode, I will be talking on, listener feedback, a couple of new additions in that territory, answering some of that, because I have a large backlog I've been saving for a couple of weeks just because the right opportunity during the regular show has not been really conducive to bringing it up. So here I'm going to bring it up for deliberation. And so, yeah, that's partially what I'm going to be talking about. The other part I'm going to be talking about later in the show will be some new tech that has been inspired by Star Trek. And some of the possibilities that lie therein. So, getting right off on the feedback, I'm going to start with Scanner 51. On the episode that we did on adulting, he says, "Hey guys, as always, I love the show. I wanted to talk about what was brought up on that with the adulting classes. I think something like this is a good idea, but I think I can make it better. Before you think I'm crazy, let me explain. I was in high school from 97 to 2000. I took the normal 2 required math classes by 9th and 10th grade. But during 11th grade, they offered an elective year-long math class. It was basically a math class designed to get us ready for adulthood. The teacher taught us everything we could need to know about post-graduation, balanced checkbook, APR interest rates for buying a car, loans, banks, setting up a type of spending fund, how to do mortgage for a house, design houses to teach square footage. It was real-world scenarios. She even taught us resumes, no finding X's or Y's. I bought a car and a house, and I think it was because of this class I knew what to expect." I can totally agree with that. I think in the basis of the adulting that's happening now, I think I have a problem more so with the term than like entering adulthood or something that's more classified in that manner. But no, I mean, everything you've mentioned about learning right there, I don't really remember. I was taught how to balance a checkbook in 5th grade. We just happened to have teachers because we used to have an NBD bank, which was later bought out by like Genesee Bank or Chase Bank One. It changed names like 4 times in my county. So, it was basically like a Chase Bank, and they had like every Friday you could make a deposit, and they had bank tellers show up, and they had students be the bank tellers. So they actually taught us how to fill up bank slips, deposit money, and it actually went to your account. And they taught us how to, you got cash handling experience there, you got how to balance a checkbook, things of that nature. The other things I didn't get, though, were the APR, the buying a house, the loans, spending fund, mortgages. I think I got square footage in, like, 7th grade. They had, like, a class that was, like, an elective that you didn't really have a choice. It was, like, what was that class called? It's been a long time since I've been in that stuff. But I can't remember what it was called. But anyways, they did a lot of the square footage and teaching you kind of measuring of, like airplane square footage type stuff or, houses, buildings, stuff like that. So, I mean, I can't remember a lot of it, but I think that would be something that would be better to get towards the end of your high school career because you're going to be entering the world and actually having to use it. And no, I totally agree with you on the X's, Y's, Z's, all that stuff. It comes in handy if you're trying to learn it for certain things, but I have yet to really, I haven't really had any use for a lot of it. It's not been the helpful kind of thing. Like, I was taking algebra in college, and luckily I was able to get out of that. I had no idea what was going on in that. They were like, find FOG, and, you know, all, they have no numbers in it. It's all letters. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's a guessing game to come up with the answer, and I'm not good at that. I like exact parameters of what I'm supposed to be doing. So, yeah, I totally agree with you there that it should be real world scenarios. They used to have a class called, like, leadership or something that they'd teach you some of that, like resumes and stuff like that. And then they had some other class. It was like home something. It wasn't like home ec or anything, but it was something in that regard where they taught you stuff that was life skills. And I had a couple classes like that, but for my knowledge, I think that a lot of that went away after I graduated in 2004. But yeah, he says, you know, make it better by moving the class to high schools, teaching what needs to be taught, teach these kids the stuff, not mid-20-something, you know, where things end badly. But, and then he says his 12th grade year was the last year it was offered because no one signed up. I would have made that like a mandatory, because that's kind of something that everyone should know how to do. Regardless of how computerized things go, you still need to know how to sign this and fill out this paperwork. Entering into my 20s, my wife and I got duped into so much junk. Like, we somehow got duped into, we went to some seminar for some reason. I don't even know how. I think because we were looking into getting married at the time. After high school, and we spent, I think it was $1,800 on this stupid pan set. And I don't even know why we did it or how we got pressured into it, other than the fact we were naive and young. But out of principle, we kept those until probably about 3 months ago, when we had a purge in February, having a yard sale, because we had a like 75-degree day in the middle of like 30-degree days. And so everybody showed up, like, flocked to our yard sale, and we sold it. But, yeah, that was, like, a principal thing. We bought, it was a ton of, like, pots and pans and, like, a roaster and, like, a bunch of other stuff. And it was stuff that you could have probably spent $200 and bought. Built our credit, in a sense, because it was a loan, but it's still, it was the most ridiculous thing after that. We never jumped on anything without reading or doing more information. And then he says in an email, so when, and I'm thinking he was referring to the patterns of some of the movies and the social commentary that goes along with it. He says, what movies are better than books? He says he's got two, and there's a pattern. His first is Watchmen. He says, I know it's not a popular opinion, but I love the movie of Watchmen. What I like than most is the ending. I really don't like space vagina ending from the book. I like the fact that Vidic frames Doc Manhattan. Seems more believable. Little known fact, in 1981, the US and the USSR signed an agreement saying if aliens ever attacked Earth, we would work together to combat it. So that's why it's in the book, but it's still a dumb ending. My second is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Again, I love this book, or movie. Saw it 3 times, so much better than the book. The movie is put together better than the book. I have a special insight into the movie. I know the man who wrote the movie. The movie suffered 3 drafts and too much studio interference from what I was told. Anyway, that's all that I came up with at this time. Honorable mention, Batman Under the Red Hood. Movie is better than the book. Movie is more practical. Once met Judd Winnick. He said that the book suffers from setup that would have payoffs months down the road. Yeah, when it comes to books and movies, a lot of times the books can include details the movies just don't have time for, which makes the books that much more better, or more well written, I should say, because it can be elaborated on and explained, and you can actually spend more time on things that should take time. Whereas the movies, you have this allotted amount of time, and yes, sometimes they hit the 3.5 hour mark, which I think is a bit ridiculous for a film. But it still pales in comparison. Yes, you can visually see it, But I kind of like, I haven't read a book in a long time that has made me actually want to read it, but when I used to read books and I would watch the movies, I would have my own preconceived idea of what things should look like, which was kind of interesting because then it was my mind getting to create this world, and then when I get to see somebody else's vision for it, and then kind of comparing and contrasting the things with it, it turns it into this really fun exploration, you could say, of what is possible in that realm. So moving on, the real Grimbo on Twitter says, as far as because we mentioned the Animaniacs reboot, he says it ain't gonna be back. It's gonna be altered to so much that to a degree that it may as well be called something else. That's how American reboots work. I mean, yes and no. I mean, if the original people are coming back, kind of like, think of it this way, like Samurai Jack, that was a nice reprisal, and it was done by the same people, but they altered enough of it that it made it actually better. So I'm wondering if they could go in that route. I mean, I'm not saying, because it was still kind of a campy, kind of fun show to watch, but I'm not saying that they're going to go like reboot in the sense of like, completely redoing it like Transformers or Powerpuff Girls or something in that realm. But you never know. Tim Silvers, this is from a while back. I have two from him. He says, first of all, which one of you was clicking their mouse like a freak during the recording? That would be me. And he says, were you playing a game or something? Man, that was a lot of clicking. It was very annoying. Other than that glaring issue, I enjoyed the show. Yeah, I didn't realize that the mouse was that loud where it was picking up in the audio. I also didn't realize that this particular call recorder we use now, because it's not Pamela where it separates the audio tracks from the Skype. This other one is called MP3 Skype Recorder, and it unfortunately picks up if any of us are watching anything or playing anything on our computers. Any sound effect that comes up will be on the record. And I didn't realize that until I went to edit the last episode and I saw... Well, actually, I realized it when I did the one with where I was playing Star Trek Online. I got in a battle and I couldn't get out of it. Because, unfortunately, I was in the middle of it when we started recording, and what happened is I was in the middle of some fight somewhere, and you are basically one ship against, like, 10, and I had to destroy them all. Otherwise, it won't let me... It'll make me start the whole mission over. If I quit, and so I was almost at the end there when I started recording, so I was finishing it. I've not done that mistake again and played the game while we've been recording, because I realized that it was in the recording, and which was before you commented, but yeah, I've not done that again because I annoyed myself with it in the editing. So he says, what fall TV shows are you looking forward to? I think Blanchard and I kind of touched on that a little bit. I'm mostly looking forward to the superhero shows. I haven't really found, and I'm looking forward to that Seth MacFarlane Star Trek knockoff. But I'm not looking forward to really anything that's coming out that's new, which is kind of unfortunate. But I most of the shows I watch, I've kind of got this little bubble now that I stay in, and I haven't really decided to exit that bubble. But you never know. If Blanchard or some people give me some, good reviews on stuff coming out in the fall, maybe I'll jump into that. So he says, as of June, I am dropping cable TV. We have had a promotional price for 2 years, and that's ending. Our bill is going up $40 a month. So yeah, we switched to a local phone company's DSL at 15 to 20 megabytes a second, which is plenty for our needs. We already have Netflix and Amazon Prime. We have had Hulu before, and I signed up because they were offering me 30 days for free. We watch one show on HBO, and that's the one thing we really struggle with paying for, as it's $15 a month. So when I'm looking forward to watching House of Cards new season just dropped on Netflix, so I'll be watching that. Also, Luke Cage. I've had that on my watch list for a while now. I also want to watch The Pacific, which is on Amazon, and I have Band of Brothers, which is an excellent series. So I look forward to The Pacific. Other than that, we'll see. He says, I'm watching some animated content too. Right now I'm finishing Robotech, and I want to finish DBZ. I watched Kai, but now that have the final 2 Blu-rays available to complete the Boo Saga and whatever else is in there, I want to watch the new season of King Julian on Netflix. That King Julian's funny, from Madagascar. And Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is now on Amazon, so I watched that. or I want to watch that. There's plenty to watch, so dropping cable isn't a problem for us. There are a few things we may miss, like I don't see The Walking Dead available on Hulu, and The Flash and Arrow aren't on Hulu, but I'm pretty much done with them after this season. At the very least, I can wait until they hit Netflix or make the decision to watch them any longer. Yeah, I mean, the CW TV content, you can pretty much watch them on their app for free. Or you can watch them on their website for free like a couple days after it airs, so it's not a big deal if you wanted to just watch it that way. Yeah, the commercials kind of suck, but it's still free. That's why I bought a portable computer for my TV, so that I don't necessarily have to actually pay for the channels. I can watch them from their stations. So either way, it's cable, but I'm not paying the extra. They're still getting the ad revenue. So I'm still supporting them. It's just a different avenue because the cable companies gyp people more than they should. Speaking of which, I recently switched from Comcast to AT&T. Now, mind you, Comcast, I had 30 megabytes or 25 megabytes a second, and then they have their power boost. I was paying $59 a month for that crap. It was $40 when I started. Actually, when I first started getting Comcast here, I was paying $35 a month, and I was getting 50 megabytes. Then that promo ended, and then they bumped us to $45, and I was getting $75 with 10 channels. And then they changed it because it went up to $59, and I got bumped back down to $25 because otherwise cost was going to kill me. And then they went to it was going to go up next month actually to $79 for that 25 megabytes, and I was like, no way. And an AT&T guy happened to be going door to door last month, and he stopped by my house, and I was thinking about it, and it's $40 a month, and I get 50 megabyte internet, which is about on par. It's because it's DSL. It's about on par with the 25 that Comcast was given, speed-wise. But it's a little bit faster, but I still notice hiccups here or there. And luckily, my wireless net or my Ethernet networking through my walls works out pretty well. So yeah, I've got that set up now. I'm going to be with that for a year, and then I'll go back to Comcast afterward, and maybe they'll have a decent special that I can get for $29.99, which they pretty much do for new people. I don't like how they kind of gouge people that have been with the company and been loyal to them for a while, but I guess loyalty and in business and customers isn't really there when it comes to a service. And giving quality service for the price. So I don't really support cable companies in that aspect. He says, what words annoy you? My bad. That one has always annoyed me for some reason. It's a lazy way to say, I'm sorry, my mistake. Selfie isn't a word I find myself using, but it doesn't annoy me that much. Adulting I see as a humorous meme that will soon fade. I kind of agree with you on the adulting. I think that it's more of a humorous meme. It doesn't bother me as much as selfie. Selfie, I just find annoying. So from the moment it was, I'm going to take a selfie, and then they do the duck face thing. Like it just drives me nuts. It's just say I'm going to take a picture of myself. Like it's a lazy way of saying that too, I guess. But no, I totally agree. My bad is kind of a lazy way of saying, and sorry, it's my fault. What would you like to hear more about in future episodes? I missed the tech talk, computers, home automation, TV tech, so if you get a chance to talk more about those things, I would be interested. Thanks for the content. Keep it coming. Funny you should mention that. I'm going to be talking some tech today. I've been trying to sprinkle more tech in, not just because of your email I received a few weeks back, but feedback, but because I kind of miss talking about it too. And I kind of got a little bit haywire on the pop culture aspect, and I kind of want to circle back around to the other stuff. So, feedback from Time Travel by Fancy Film Editing episode. He says, I am enjoying the content, guys. Good podcast. I just wanted to comment briefly on politics and TV and movies. No disrespect, but pop culture often reflects the politics and therefore cultures of the times, which I agree, it does. I just don't like where there's the glaring dump of it, you could say, of politics in my TV and films. Basically the rabid kind. Like, I understand it's a kind of a commentary of life when you watch it, but it's also, I mean, I guess I can see your point too, though. He says, this is across many art forms, including music, comics, TV, and movies. Not every form of art has taken the approach of providing a social commentary. We can have movies that reflect the political concerns of the times, yet they do not necessarily draw you out of the film. Likewise, we can have films that are just good, popcorn entertainment that provide an escape. It's okay to have both. And I like that too. I like some that you just shut your brain off and you just enjoy it. And then I like the stuff that, you have to think about. But I don't necessarily like when it's directly... our political landscape is so rabid at this point. I don't want to see that hit our pop culture media. And so I guess that's where my concern lies. It's not necessarily that it's making a commentary of it, but I think that's where I have the problem. He says a lot of sci-fi focuses a lot on the current social and technological issues and challenges to tell a story. So I was surprised to see a discussion that aimed to keep politics and social media or social culture out of film and media. Like I said, I just wanted to see less of the... I understand it has to be there because that's part of life, but I don't want to see it become like the rabid, kind of crazy commentary that we've had in the past, or in this current time anyway. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back after that and get back with more feedback, get the iTunes feedback, and then jump into some awesome topics. So we'll be right back. Do you want to interact with the show? Well, you can get a hold of us in the following ways. You can email us, feedback@alteredgeek.com, or you can fill out the form on the website on alteredgeek.com. You can also get on the episode post on alteredgeek.com and make your comments there. You can, of course, get a hold of us on the social media, Facebook @alteredgeek, or on Twitter @alteredgeek. And, of course, you can find the show on the following locations. You can get it on iTunes, on Google Play, on Stitcher, and on TuneIn, Blog Talk Radio, as well as alteredgeek.com. And now, back to the show. And we're back with Altered Geek, and I'm going to be jumping back into the feedback. So, Peter Faith says, come on now, let's not act like our generation is not guilty of creating our own words. This was on the word feedback where I was with Blanchard bashing made-up words. He says, we're the people that began things like LOL and other text speak. Well, I mean, I guess we did create all that back in the 90s with the instant messaging and Yahoo, AOL, ICQ, MSN, all those big chat forums. And he says, was Google a verb prior to the 2000s? No, it wasn't. Cowabunga wasn't something people said until the 80s or 90s. Yep, because Ninja Turtles. All generations have their own vocabulary that they create, which, yeah, I guess I failed to see that too. I think it's because I'm getting old and I find the younger generation stuff really annoying at this point because it's not as creative as some of the things that we came up with when we were younger. I guess that's kind of where it is, but I think that it's just because I'm getting old and a lot of the younger generation stuff is just real touchy to me at this point. So, yeah, I guess that all generations do create their own vocabulary. He says, for fall TV, I have no idea. I don't pay attention to it unless I start seeing actual previews. Because I think in that episode, we also talked fall TV, which, yeah, I've already mentioned that ad nauseum. King of Kong says, not really a fall show, I think, but Black Lightning looks great. Super happy will make up for the loss of Flash during the summer, so that makes me happy. I agree. I have no, doubt in my mind that show is going to be actually pretty well written and pretty good. I really do look forward to seeing what happens in that. And I definitely will give it a shot. Whether it's in the Arrow universe or not, I think that it will turn out very well. And it'll be cool to see a DC superhero that is not white, to say the least. But not that I don't like all of them. Like I like pretty much every character I come across in the DC universe. Marvel, I'm very touchy. But DC, there's very few that I dislike, unless they're just like a third, fourth tier, fifth tier character, which I think Black Lightning is like a second tier level character. So I think that he'll do very well, because a lot of the Arrowverse are second level and third level characters, other than Flash himself, who is a first level. The rest of them I definitely see. I like how the Arrowverse and all of the CW DC shows kind of propel these characters that would have otherwise not gotten the attention, and kind of done the opposite of what Marvel's done, which I think is why they're successful. They didn't take Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, and turn them into series. They made the other characters the prime characters, which is kind of nice. He says also he'd love to... next feedback. Brad Mull says, while I also thought the story was going for uploading our DNA. On the episode where I talked about Microsoft cataloging information in DNA strands, I partially was going off the headline on that when I read it, and then I realized that it wasn't actually that. But I did think it was going for uploading our DNA, which I was like, man, that would be really crazy, waking up in like an android body that had our DNA, looked like us, and had our brain. So... he says, if I wake up in 100 years' time in an alien torture lab, I'll be very annoyed. He says, as far as movies that he wants to see in the Star Wars realm, I'd also love to see an Obi-Wan prequel film with Old Man Kenobi. I definitely can second that. Jason Lucan says, I don't know how to put it, but what TV show changed the show up by going in a new direction or premise? Now, this was from Facebook. He says, not just changing actors or because of real life death like 8 Simple Rules, or got rid of a character like 2.5 Men, but the concept of the show changed. There are only a few I can think of. He says the Torkelsons, Almost Home, Valerie, the Hogan Family, The Facts of Life, Charles in Charge, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. You could almost argue Boy Meets World did that in a sense, because they started off like it was very kind of, lesson-y and teaching of younger kid generation. Then they went to the high school, and then they went to college, and like everything went out the window. Like it was just all kinds of all over the place. And I think to me that would be like the ultimate one, but I can't really think of any like off the top of my head that I've watched that have done that. You could almost argue that Star Trek Deep Space Nine kind of went in a new direction, in a sense, because it became a battle of just personalities and moving on and kind of growing as people, and then it turned into like this giant war epic in the later seasons, and so you could kind of see it in that sense. But I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what people think on that. That's definitely an interesting topic that I may have to revisit and do a little bit more research on, because that's that's probably one of the most difficult questions I've been asked in a while, and that's saying a lot. So definitely we'll revisit that one. So getting into iTunes feedback, I haven't had this in like 2 years, but I'm very, 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 very thankful for my iTunes reviewers. I got a 5-star by Radical Watcher on May 19th saying, fun podcast that is if you want to get caught up on geek stories going on around the world of pop culture. So thank you very much for that. And Eric Hutch 08 on May 10th gave me a 5-star saying, I Am Altered, one of the few one-person shows I can listen to. Do enjoy when other guests are on as well. Highly recommend. So thank you too. And so I'm going to be definitely splitting it up more, having some with just myself and some with hosts. We actually have an episode coming up on bullying that is going to be with myself, TFG1 Mike, and Michael Dodd, which, if you remember back in 2012? Yeah, 2012. We had an episode on bullying on Geekcast Radio. It was like somewhere in like the 20s or 30s numbering. And it was with Dustin Vancouver on there with us, and it was the same topic, but a lot has changed in 5 years. So there's a lot more depth to talking about that now than there was 5 years ago. And I think that social media has perpetrated a lot of that change in that area. So be sure to stay tuned to that. That's definitely going to be an interesting topic when we get into that. So I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to take a quick break and go into the tech that is awesome, that is from the future, that is Star Trek. And we're back. So, one of the things that I was going to do was talk about Star Trek tech that's in the modern era. And it was kind of interesting because as I was going through this, I noticed something. That there is a documentary called Making Star Trek. And it came out by the Smithsonian a few years... Actually, it was like a year ago. It must have been sometime last year. I'm not really sure. I just caught it. And it's been interesting. I was watching the technology that came from Star Trek that was revolutionary and never heard of. And thought to be near impossible. And then watching this documentary and seeing what people have actually accomplished is crazy. I knew they had the transparent aluminum. I covered that on Altered Geek probably in the first year of the show. I knew that they'd made the lasers. That was kind of common knowledge prior. And they haven't quite made it small enough to be mobile, but they have created it. So there is that. Warp drive is still out of our reach. Deflectors and shielding and stuff like that still out of our reach. They've managed to do kind of transportation of molecules and very, 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 very small stuff. I think that they're working on like replicator technology. They actually do have, and I covered this in Future Imperfect and I think second year of Altered Geek. There was a contest to create the world's first working tricorder. And they've succeeded. It's kind of amazing, actually. So, the dream of the compact all-in-one medical scanner is said to be decades away, or centuries, I think decades. But two startups have built limited tricorders that they hope will eventually reach patients who could use them to monitor health conditions. In some ways, the devices are far smarter than the one envisioned in the TV and movie series. Dynamical Biomarkers Group and a startup that dubbed itself Final Frontier Medical Devices, a nod to the Star Trek title sequence, have created what they call first-generation tricorders that employ machine learning and artificial intelligence to make a medical diagnosis. In Star Trek, the tricorder obviously is, the tool for getting everything. Information, whether it's the doctor or scientific stuff, it reads everything. And obviously they have different ones that are made for different purposes in the show, but it says this device and the one made by Dynamical Biomarkers provide information people can use while keeping track of their condition, and a doctor wouldn't necessarily have to interpret it. It says that the people obviously were fans of the show growing up. Final Frontier renamed itself Basil Leaf Technologies, and they won the $2.5 million first prize in the nonprofit X Prize Foundation's Tricorder Contest, which was sponsored by Qualcomm. The $10 million five-year-long contest concluded in April after drawing some 300 entrants. That's insane. But the Basil Leaf tricorder is a codenamed Dexter. Is a 6-piece tricorder with a chest sensor, a wrist sensor, a blood pressure unit, a spirometer, to measure air capacity in lungs, a round thermometer, stethoscope, and a iPad mini. There was a second prize for the dynamical biomarkers Deep Q kit, which includes a digital stethoscope, wireless instruments for blood, urine, breath, and glucose tests, and a smartphone that receives the data over a Bluetooth connection. It says both devices are designed to diagnose 10 conditions, including middle ear infection, sleep apnea, atrial fibrillation, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, pneumonia, diabetes, leukocytosis, urinary tract infections, the absence of conditions. The device can monitor blood pressure, heart rate, respiration, body temp, and oxygen saturation. Dexter also looks for mononucleosis, whooping cough, and hypertension, while the Deep Q can detect melanoma, shingles, and hypertension. Both face years of trials and field testing before they gain Food and Drug Administration approval. I think that's awesome, because I was planning on covering more in this episode. However, because of some unforeseen circumstances, I have to unfortunately cut this episode a little short. There's another episode coming on Wednesday, and I will have everything else I plan to have on this episode, including some geeky news and some tech, in the next episode. So after the one that's recorded after this one. Since I recorded this one partially first and then the other one, and then never got the time to actually come back to it. So anyways, until next time, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks.